So what is the best 450 on the market? Well, I'm here for Motocross Action, and it is our full-time job to ride, race, and test dirt bikes for a living. In this video, we're going to be breaking down the 2025 450 four-strokes, letting you know the best and the worst. So this year is an exciting one, as 5 of these models have some huge updates for this new model season. However, we are missing a few big bikes. Beta 450 RX, it has been updated for 2025, but that one's not going to be available till the end of the year. Also, Ducati and Triumph, they're still working on their 450s. Triumph does have a 250 in production, but not the 450 quite yet. So in this video, we're going to break down the 7 major models and help you make a better educated decision on what you should buy with your hard-earned money. And once you've made your decision, head to Chaparral Motorsports, where you can parts, gear, and whichever bike meets your needs. And no matter what bike you pick over at Chaparral, MotorX Oil has you dialed in on all the fluids you need: engine oil, moto shine, chain lube, and more. And thanks to Roostamix for hooking us up with graphics for all 7 of our bikes. They're easy to install and they look great. Starting things off, we have the Yamaha YZ450F, a bike that MXA has loved for the past few years. Retails for $9,999, same price as the last couple years. Also, on the dyno, 59.5 horsepower with 36.2 foot-pounds of torque. This thing is a monstrous engine. Not the fastest engine on peak dyno numbers, but extremely fast on the track. As for the weight, 234 pounds. And Yamaha, they did make some updates for 2025. Suspension settings, linkage, shock settings. Also, the foot peg mounts have been cut down a little bit. Mapping has been updated just slightly, and inside the clutch, some more bleed holes to add durability. This bike has won MXA Shootout for the last 2 years, but the big question is, will it win this one? Next up, the 2025 GasGas MC450F. This bike updated quite a bit, as with all the Austrian brands for 2025. That's right, this massive cutout here in the shock tower, big differences in the chromoly steel frame. Also, these tubes are a little bit thinner. Engine mounts got cut out. Also, the steering head up here, a little bit softer, a little more flexible for 2025. So that's the same on GasGas, Husqvarna, and KTM. But the big difference is between GasGas, it doesn't have the Brembo brakes. It also doesn't have the Brembo hydraulic clutch. This thing retails for $10,499. That's an $800 savings from KTM, but you're missing out on some select items. Also, map switch doesn't have the map switch. You can plug it in, but from the dealership, you're missing map 2, you're missing quick shift and traction control. On the dyno, the GasGas hits 57.9 horsepower at peak, and it also hits 35.9 foot-pounds of torque. As for weight, it weighs 228 pounds with these Dunlop MX-34s that we have on here, but with Maxxis tires, you'll save a weight on there, and that's what it comes stock with. Check out this lever. That's right, it's a Kickstarter, and it comes on the 2025 Suzuki RMZ450. This bike retails for $9,299. That's a $100 upcharge from last year, but as soon as this thing gets to the dealership, dealers are willing to lower the MSRP and offer this bike to you at a much more affordable price. On the dyno, 56.4 horsepower, but that is with the Pro Circuit exhaust system. That's right, this is the RM Army Edition bike, and this is the second time we're running the RM Army Edition in our 450 Shootout, because you can buy it just like this at the dealership. As far as torque goes, it hits 35.9 foot-pounds of torque, so that's an extra 2 horsepower on the dyno. It is also an extra 2 pounds lighter on the scales. Stock bike, 241 pounds. With the Pro Circuit exhaust system, 239 pounds. So Suzuki RMZ 450, the best part about it is the engine. Very smooth, easy to ride. Nice bell-shaped power curve in the bottom to mid RPM range. Easy to ride, but it does have a lot of engine braking, and no, it is not very fast. Next up, Husqvarna FC450. This bike is the most expensive motorcycle, $11,399. It's also the fastest motorcycle on our dyno, 61.1 horsepower with 36 foot-pounds of torque. As for weight, 228 pounds. This bike does come with the updated chromoly steel frame that all of the Austrian brands got for 2025. But the big topic about this bike, it's lower. KTM brand has 3 different models, so they can hit 3 different target audiences. Obviously, Husqvarna is tailored to the vet rider. 1 inch lower at the seat. How did they do that? These forks, 10 mil shorter. The shock also has a longer steel head to limit travel just slightly. It has a revised linkage ratio. Pro taper handlebars come stock on this bike, and they're actually a little bit wider and lower than KTM as well. So Husqvarna is the most vet-friendly bike, and it's the fastest bike of 2025. Next up, the 2025 Honda CRF450. This thing retails for $9,699. Same price as last year, but they made a ton of updates. Engine, very similar. The header is a little bit longer on this one to make out a little bit smoother power. Airbox is also updated, but the biggest focus for 2025 was the frame and the chassis on this model. We've complained that the frame was too stiff in the past. Guess what? Honda made it even stiffer for 2025, but that should make for a more balanced and rideable bike on the track. Forks are updated, triple clamps are updated, brakes are updated, shock, linkage, a ton of updates on this bike. On the dyno, 55.6 horsepower with 36.5 foot-pounds of torque. So lowest amount of horsepower with the highest amount of foot-pounds of torque. Kind of a unique engine character there. As for the scales, this thing weighs 236 pounds. That's 3 pounds heavier than last year. Next, we have the Kawasaki KX450. This bike was all new last year in 2024 when it got the new frame, new engine. It got a steeper head angle, making this bike better for turning in and out of corners, but not as stable in the straight line. This bike retails for $10,499. On the scales, it's tied with Suzuki as the heaviest bike in the class at 239 pounds. Now, talking about the engine character, very smooth, linear on the track, kind of slow and down on power when you're on the track, but dyno numbers, on the peak numbers, it's actually pretty impressive. It hits 58 horsepower with 35.4 foot-pounds of torque, and that's the KX450. Okay, Connor got a real job, and now he is just so excited to ride that he's getting a little sketchy today. And last but not least, we have the 2025 KTM 450 SXF. This thing retails for $11,299. On the dyno, 58 horsepower. It's actually 1 horsepower less than it was last year, and there's nothing internally changed on the engine, so that's kind of interesting. 35.5 foot-pounds of torque on the dyno. On the scales, 228 pounds. It's tied for the lightest bike in the class with its 2 siblings. KTM, of course, did get the updated frame, linkage, engine hangers, and all the updates that came on the factory edition. We've been riding and racing with this bike for a long time because all these updates came on the factory edition, and we honestly love it. We had a lot of complaints about the chassis taking too long to break in last year. KTM listened, and they made updates for 2025.
Man, I'm parched after all this riding today. Shootout.
So many bikes, so much riding.
Man, I bet you wish you had a hat.
I wish I had a hat.
Some glasses.
Some glasses, yeah. And some water.
Maybe a little water.
Oh, it's hot. That water was hot. Some more water. You see that? Who was that guy?
Oh,
That's Bob.
thanks, Bob the Cooler Cup.
Ooh. Yeah. I'll take one of these. Actually, we have a lot of bikes. Yeah, that'll be good.
Hey there.
How's it going?
Good, man.
I got a lot of oil today.
That's a ton of oil.
And I want to get this new Shoei.
Yeah, man. I don't think we sell this colorway here.
Well, can I still buy it?
I guess.
Ordering custom graphics has never been easier. At roostmx.net, set up your graphics just the way you want them in minutes. So easy, you can order them from just about anywhere. Can I order from right here? Yep, right there. What about right here? Yeah, even right there. What about right here? It's a little weird, but yeah, I guess that works. Head over to roostmx.net today. And now it's time to get into the rankings. You guessed it, coming in 7th place, the Suzuki RMZ450. No, not even Ken Roczen could save this bike. Although he does make it look amazing on the track, we do know that most of our viewers on our YouTube channel probably don't have the same skills of Ken Roczen. Unfortunately, this bike has not been changed since 2018, 6 years too long. The stink bug chassis makes it difficult to ride on the track. The suspension is really where we throw a huge red flag. The forks are very soft, and the shock, this is a BFRC shock, so the internals on this are quite a bit different. It's a mystery to figure out, and unfortunately, most suspension tuners don't really want to figure out that mystery. So if you want to buy a Suzuki, you will save some money at the dealership, but you'll have to spend that money to fix the suspension. I'm sad to say it, but the Kawasaki KX450 is coming in 6th place in MXA's 2025 450 Shootout. We had a long list of updates that we wanted Kawasaki to make to this model for 2025, but they only made 3 very, very minute changes. They updated the air filter, which we were thankful for that. Last year's flat piece of toast was a no-go, but now the new air filter still is pretty cramped inside that air box, not allowing a lot of air to go in there. It's a copy of the Twin Air Power Flow kit that we installed on last year's model, so we appreciate the new domed filter, but still need some more airflow in this. Last year we put a Pro Circuit exhaust system on, Vortex ECU, did a lot of things to wake up this bike. If you want a Japanese 350, the Kawasaki KX450 is a good place to go. Such a smooth and mellow engine. Unfortunately, durability has not been improved. This bike is still the best in class for stripping bolts out. Clutch is not super strong, and the plastic is still super brittle. Coming in 5th place is the GasGas MC450F. While it is true, this is basically a downgraded red version of the KTM, you are still getting the KTM engine, you are still getting the chromoly steel frame, swing arm, and the suspension components, but you are missing out on quite of the KTM upgrades, and you're not getting the price difference that you used to get when you bought a GasGas. This thing is now just as expensive as the Kawasaki KX450, and it's more expensive than Yamaha and Honda. Forged aluminum triple clamps, these are different, and they do affect the handling on this bike. Suspension settings on GasGas are softer. You're missing the resonance chamber on the header here, and of course you're missing that map switch with map 2, traction control, and the biggest thing about this bike though is the brakes and the clutch. Brake tech components are not quite there with Brembo. Yes, they are better for 2024 and 25, but they're still not Brembo quality, and that's why the GasGas is 5th place. Coming in 4th place, that's right, it's the Husqvarna FC450. Now this bike is a great bike. In 2021, when it was first introduced to have that lowered suspension platform, all of our riders loved it. Pros, intermediates, tall guys, short guys, vets, everybody in between loved the Husqvarna platform. Then in 2023, when the new chassis came out with the frame, swing arm, engine, all the updates that came in 23, our pros and our faster riders really appreciated the extra suspension that came on KTM and GasGas, and they were missing that when they hopped on the Husqvarna model. So this was a difficult one to put it in 4th place because it is a better bike than it was last year. We appreciate the updates to the chromoly steel frame, that it's much easier to break in, also much more compliant and comfortable on the track. Even though this thing is the fastest bike on the track and it has a very smooth and linear power band, we still ranked it 4th place in our shootout. Coming in third place in our 450 shootout is the Yamaha YZ450F. Now yes, this bike did win the last 2 years in a row, but the competition has gotten better this year. We still appreciate the ultra strong engine. 59 horses are inside of that engine, and they've got all the power to that rear wheel. If you've never gotten a whole shot before, you need to buy a Yamaha YZ450. Our pro riders love harnessing the power inside this bike and getting whole shots. Yamaha is an extremely fast bike on the track, but it is a little bit twitchy. Coming into corners, and when you let off the throttle, the front end can be very nervous. We do a lot of things to smoothen out the power by adding a hydraulic clutch. That smoothens out that hit instead of the cable clutch, which comes stock. We've also added FCP race cups to kind of rake out the front end and calm that down, as well as suspension upgrades. Yamaha YZ450F also has a few durability concerns. We've seen a lot of our friends pushing their bikes off the track with Yamaha 450s, and for the twitchiness, the too strong engine, and the durability concerns, that's why this bike finished third in our 450 shootout. Coming in second place for 2025 is the Honda CRF 450. This wins as the most improved bike in the class. Yamaha got a little bit better, KTM got quite a bit better, but Honda, this thing got 35 or 40% better. We love this bike for 2025. If you liked Honda before, you'll absolutely love this bike now. If you didn't like Honda before, you'll probably appreciate this bike now as well. The sag numbers, the clicker changes, even the minor little updates that you made to the 23 and 24 bike just would throw this bike out of whack super quickly. It required a lot of work when you switch between tracks. Now for 2025, a much more consistent platform, and it's not so twitchy, and it's also not so harsh. They made the frame stiffer, but that allows the suspension to work more. Suspension still not perfect. The forks are very soft. We definitely recommend going up a spring rate or two in the forks. I also liked going up a spring rate in the shock as well. So there are some updates you can make to this bike. The hydraulic clutch, it is a little inconsistent for our test riders' liking, but overall, this is the best CRF 450 we've seen since 2008. And we said that last year, and this thing blows last year's bike out of the water. And that's right, the 2025 KTM 450 wins as MXA's 450 Bike of the Year. We had complaints about it as it finished second the last 2 years in a row, and KTM updated those. The chromoly steel frame no longer takes 10 hours to break in. Now it breaks in much quicker, and it is much more comfortable on the track. 2022, KTM had a very comfortable and compliant frame. 2023, they went too far, too rigid, trying to find stability out of their chassis. Now, for 2025, they've come back to a happy medium between the 22 and the 23 frames, and honestly, the MXA test riders love it. Vet riders love it, pro riders love it, intermediates love it, and one thing we really appreciate about this bike is the durability. KTM, Husqvarna, GasGas, those are the only manufacturers who can claim that they run the stock clutch inside of their factory engines in Supercross and Motocross. Chase Sexton, he did awesome on this bike, winning the outdoor championship this season, and the KTM 450 takes the cake. But that doesn't mean we don't have complaints. We hate that the spokes come loose at regular intervals. You need to check your spokes on your KTM 450. Also, the WP air forks do take a lot of work. They come with a 3-pound weight savings, but they also require extra maintenance at the track. Continuing to check your air pressure, especially if you leave your bike out in the sun and it's not in the shade. So KTM 450 SXF takes the win in MXA's book. The lightest bike on the track, one of the most exciting engines, only being beaten out by Yamaha on the excitement factor. Otherwise, KTM 450, #1 bike from the MXA Wrecking Crew. And thanks to Boxo USA for keeping us dialed in with all the tools we need to keep our 450s on the track. And thanks to Bob's Cool Co for keeping our test riders hydrated. So thank you for sticking around through our 450 shootout video. Yes, the KTM did take first place in our shootout, and it is the bike that we recommend to the most amount of riders, but that doesn't mean the other bikes are bad. Our MXA test riders all love different models and all pick their own favorite here and there, but the KTM wins as the best overall recommended bike from MXA for 2025. Thank you guys for sticking around to this video. The MXA 450 shootout video is more of a snapshot of our months and months of testing that goes into our 450 shootout. For a more in-depth review, check out the December issue of Motocross Action magazine, where you can read the full write-up on the MXA 2025 450 shootout with more details, dyno charts, weights, and everything in there. So thank you guys for sticking around. I'm Josh Mosman, and we'll see you in the next video.